Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad you're here for a powerful screening of Meeting with the Killer: One Family's Journey, followed by a live Q&A. My name is Anita Vadva. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm Executive Director of Restorative Houston. Today's film screening is part of a series of events to promote community awareness of crime victims' rights and services during this week's 2025 National Crime Victims' Rights Week. We are grateful for funding from the National Association of VOCA Assistance Administrators through a grant from the Office for Victims of Crime, OVC, within the Office of Justice Programs, U.S. Department of Justice. Before we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded. If you have questions during the film, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. We encourage respectful engagement, so please keep the space supportive and productive. Closed captions are available for this webinar. To turn them on, just look at the bottom of your Zoom screen and click on the CC or Show Captions button. On some versions, it may appear as More with 3 dots, especially if you're on a mobile device or tablet. If you'd like to adjust the size or appearance of the captions, you can go into your Zoom settings under Accessibility to make them more comfortable for you. Before we press play, we want to take a moment to introduce ourselves. We are a newly formed nonprofit. Restorative Houston's mission is to create a multi-generational network of restorative justice practitioners who will build community and repair harm at the individual, community, and systemic levels in Houston. We acknowledge that restorative justice comes from Indigenous people, and so we cannot engage in this philosophy without fully recognizing the harm that has been and continues to be perpetuated against our Indigenous brothers and sisters and ancestors. And so we acknowledge that the land on which we reside originally and rightfully belongs to the Karankawa, Ishak, Kwaotekan, and Sana peoples, among others. We want to invite you to visit our website at restorativehouston.org so you can join us for other events this week. On April 8th, we have a webinar entitled Restorative Justice for Family and Domestic Violence, Case Studies from Texas. The QR code on the right will take you to our webpage, and if you click on events, you can get access to all of this information. On April 9th, we have a healing circle for families of homicide victims in partnership with an organization called Legacy Lives On. The circle keepers are Janet Connors and Killer Hilton from Boston, and this is a closed circle. Space is limited, so please pass this information on. And our last webinar is April 10th. It is RJ and Victims' Rights in Texas, Survivors Supporting Survivors, a webinar. Our work is rooted in the belief that true justice centers the voices and needs of those most impacted and that repair is possible. This afternoon's film is an intimate and challenging look at that belief in action. Meeting with the Killer: One Family's Journey invites us into a space rarely seen on screen, a restorative justice dialogue between the family of a murder victim and the person responsible. It's not easy to watch, and we suggest taking breaks as needed to hydrate, breathe, and just be. After the film, we'll be joined by Linda and Amy White, daughter and granddaughter of Cathy O'Daniel, the victim from this documentary. We hope the conversation afterward offers space for reflection, connection, and healing. So, with that, let's begin. We invite you to take a breath, settle in, and thank you again for being here.
Two 15-year-old boys are in the custody of Harris County officials tonight in connection with the murder of a 26-year-old Northwest Harris County woman.
In 1986, when I was 5 years old, my mother was abducted, raped, and murdered.
Two 15-year-old boys who escaped from a Texas Youth Council facility last
In
month.
1986, my daughter Cathy was abducted, was raped, and was murdered.
One of the teenagers led police early Saturday to an isolated area.
Sheriff's deputies say the teens led them to the woman's body in a field in Brazoria County.
They ended up almost in Alvin, Texas.
The authorities say O'Daniel had been sexually assaulted and shot.
She was shot once in the leg and 3 times in the back of the head.
The boys were captured 4 days later in Cathy's stolen car.
They had also tried to disfigure her face, apparently with a cigarette lighter, just to make her not identifiable.
They didn't find her body for 4 days. Can you only imagine what this family went through?
They both pled guilty, so there was no trial. I have never laid eyes on either one of them.
The trigger man is in a psychiatric unit, and we can't see him.
But I am preparing to meet with the other one a few months from now.
I'm getting ready to meet one of the boys who murdered my mother.
In 1988, I pled guilty to first-degree murder and sexual assault. I'm currently serving a sentence of 54 years.
Imagine sitting at a table and looking in the eyes of the man who murdered someone you love.
6 months from now, Linda and Amy White will meet that man. Ellen Halbert is the trained mediator who has been assigned to this case.
The program is named Victim Offender Mediation Dialogue because really that's what we do. We cause a dialogue to happen.
I contacted Victim Services about 2 years ago.
This process is initiated by the victim, and then we contact the offender who's in prison to see if he might be interested. The offender, in order to participate, understands that he has to admit guilt, and it absolutely does not benefit him in any way. It does not affect his parole or how he is perceived inside the prison system. We are on our way to Tomball, Texas, which is about 40 miles northwest of Houston.
Today, Halbert will meet the victims at their home. They have been corresponding for 6 months, but this will be their first face-to-face meeting.
What I hope to have happen today is I would like Linda and Amy to talk about that day that Cathy died. I know that although Amy was only 5 years old, I'm sure she'll remember that time. She'll have some memory of it, and I know that Linda will have a lot of things that she remembers. Oh, look at the little dog, here to greet us. What I'd like to do now is just get started. Whoever wants to talk about what you remember happening, when you first knew that something just wasn't quite right, the day that you lost your daughter and your mother.
She was killed probably early morning hours of the 18th. But we didn't know, of course, she was gone until the 22nd. Remember, John said, it's the worst you can possibly imagine.
Our first meeting, it was very emotional. It was like first time sitting down, remembering everything that happened. It brings back a lot of pain and a lot of fear and a lot of stuff that I hadn't dealt with in a long time. I don't remember who told me. Was it Dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't say the words.
And he told me, and I remember screaming, "But Mommy's pregnant, Mommy's pregnant." I was so excited that I was going to have a baby brother or sister. And I remember I ran into here and I went and hid in the pantry. And I remember Dad came in there and got me.
And we know this is not going to be a simple process. If it were that easy, we wouldn't be preparing for it all these months.
The preparation process can take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years before the actual mediation takes place.
The process involves months of paperwork and soul-searching. Both sides keep journals, answer questionnaires that probe their fears and motivations, complete grief inventories that examine how the crime has affected their lives.
The philosophy behind this program is to give power back to victims.
Amy's parents divorced when she was just an infant. After her mother's murder, she was adopted by her grandparents, Linda and John White.
Silly boy.
She is the single mother of a year-old boy, Chase.
Tomball's a pretty small town, so when Cathy was murdered, it was pretty big news. The funeral service was like the biggest one they've had in Tomball, and it took up this whole parking lot and the parking lot next door. People were standing outside.
Cathy was our only daughter. We had 2 sons. There's this family album here. She was slender. She had long brown hair, blue eyes. She was very vivacious, very animated. Here's a picture of our whole family when Steve was probably 5 or 6.
She made me feel very good, and I could observe her making other people feel the same way. Easy to talk to, easy to be with.
We would laugh together, and I can still remember the way she would, go, "Oh, Mom," just like that, "Oh, Mom." I can remember it like it was yesterday. Here is Cathy with Amy.
She loved to dance and sing. Even when I was like 3 or 4, I just remember how beautiful she was.
This was close to the last Christmas. There's Steve.
I think there's a part of me that doesn't want to remember because then I have to accept the fact that she's gone. So honestly, it's easier to not remember.
We're on our way to the All-Red unit in Wichita Falls, which is a huge maximum security unit.
Today is Halbert's first meeting with convicted murderer Gary Brown. She's apprehensive.
Lots of razor wire. What we hope to do today is get Gary to talk more about what was going on in his life that drove him to the point that he committed this horrible crime. He has not wanted to talk about this crime, and I'm hoping I can get him to do that today. Do you think the warden can see us now, Warden Trim?
Yes, ma'am.
The prison's warden is unfamiliar with the mediation program.
Now, these guys, I understand they have to actually come out and admit fully that they're responsible.
Oh, yes, yes. And this is also a victim-driven process. The victim has to ask for it. And although it's not publicized, we have almost 500 victims on our waiting list.
And I don't understand, for me, really what the families hope to get out of this process.
People who are victims of crime heal in different ways, and some really want to put it behind them and they want to go forward with their lives and never think about it again. But then others have many, many questions. And the only person who can answer the questions that victims have is that offender.
If someone hurt somebody in my family and they would ask me if I wanted to be part in this, my first question is, are you going to shake me down at the door? Well, could I ask you a personal question?
You bet. What
do you get out of this deal?
Well, I think everyone has their own personal story. And for me, I was the victim of a violent crime. In 1986, a man broke into my house and spent the night in the attic, and the next morning, when everyone had gone, he surprised me in my bathroom. He was dressed in a ninja suit with everything covered but his eyes, and during the next 2 hours, I was raped, stabbed 4 times, and left for dead in my bathroom. As a result of the attack on me, I started working with crime victims. I work in the district attorney's office in Austin, Texas. I manage the victim witness division. What I do as a mediator is all volunteer. And it's 100 hours of training. It's very intense.
Well, this is the offender's travel card, which gives us some pretty good information at our fingertips. And just looking at his record, I mean, it's obvious to me he's had problems his whole life. Let's see. At age of 8, admits use of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamines, LSD, Quaaludes at the age of 12. Intravenous use of cocaine, LSD, and methamphetamines at age 13, and an admitted alcoholic, 10 suicide attempts, mostly by overdosing on pills. Doesn't excuse what he did, but this kid never had a chance.
And this mediation might be Gary Brown's only chance. Gary Brown killed Cathy White 15 years ago. Ellen Halbert, the mediator with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, has been corresponding with Brown for 6 months and hopes that today he will finally be able to talk about the crime.
He was high, drunk, I didn't think, anything could stop us or get in the way of it.
What kind of drugs were you on?
I was on coke, speed. Well, they call it speedball when you mix them together. And we'd been drinking MD 2020. That's when we took advantage of her and gave her no choice on it, sexually.
Both of you?
Yes.
As far as Ellen knows, Gary has never spoken to anyone about his crime, not even his cellmates.
He's been able to push it out of his mind and not think about it, as many offenders do. It was good for him to be able to talk about it.
The only way we thought we'd ever be able to keep it from being known and get away with it was to make sure she couldn't say nothing.
Did you know she was dead?
More or less after the second or either third shot, that was pretty well we both believed that, just by the way it was seen that she was dead, because she wasn't moving, there was no screaming, there was no crying.
Anything happened after that?
We was trying to make it, at that time, make it where no big people identify her. That's why we had tried to set her on fire. And we tried by setting her hair on fire. Trying to actually buy time is what we was trying to do. I mean, that's how sick we were back then.
I was struck from the very first time I met Gary that there's something very sad and lonely about him. He'd never hurt anyone before this time, just tried to hurt himself. He's very childlike in many ways. He suffers from severe depression. He has told me that he takes Zoloft and lithium and has taken it for years. And I felt a sympathy for him that I didn't understand. Here is this man that had murdered a young woman, and I was feeling sympathy for him.
The program does not require the offender to write letters to his victims, but Gary has chosen to do so. Ellen has read and approved the letters that she delivered to the family.
To the daughter of the mother. As I write this letter, I don't know if you will read it. I think I would be the last person you want to hear from. I'm sure you hate me and maybe wish I was dead. You know I don't blame you if this is true. I understand and I don't believe
you're wrong
for feeling that way.
I know no matter what I do, I cannot make things right. I don't expect y'all to believe how sorry I am for messing up y'all's life.
If I could change a day in my life, it would be that day. I will always hate a part of myself for that day. Why? I was 15 years old when that happened. I've been in and out of boys' homes and state school all my life. I was left behind when I was born by my mom. I was put in an orphanage. Later on, my stepdad sexually abused me. That's when I first ran away from home.
I understand what it's like not to have a family. Whatever you think of me, I understand. And if you hate me for the rest of your life, that's okay. It's my fault. I caused you to feel that way.
Well, I'm going to stop here. Like I said, I don't expect you to believe me, but I hope somewhere down the line my actions will show how sorry I am. Gary Brown.
This process demands that both sides re-examine their lives.
Open wide, yeah. Even though Cathy has been dead since 1986, she's still here in this process and in everything we do. I know that she would not want me to be living in hate and anger. I know that she would want me to do what I'm doing.
I don't think I could go look at somebody that killed someone in my family and do that. If I'd have had one. All my life I wished. I had a family when I was in juvenile wishing, why me, why me? How come I can't have a family like everybody else? As far as how I look back then, I feel like if something wouldn't have happened, wouldn't stop me, wouldn't have got caught, I probably would have been dead. Yeah, I would have ended up dead out there. Because I was still doing drugs at the time, and I was still running, and I was still trying to be cool. Ready to go? This tastes bad. Recently, I've been having some dreams, and sometimes when I wake up out of the dreams, I feel like it was 2 or 3 days ago that all this has actually happened. It's like it's all been right there again, and that ain't been going on for the last 10 years. But now it's like it's all right there, like it just happened again.
It's been 3 months since Ellen's last meeting with Linda and Amy. She wants to know that they are ready to hear what only the killer can tell them.
You wrote that you just love to hear stories about your mom, but I wonder how hard that's going to be to hear this story.
I want to hear anything that she said to him. I mean, anything that she said to anybody, I want to hear. You know, any little piece of information I can get, anything.
And of course, I want to know some things that happened that day. That's been the one thing all these years that I've not been able to think about, those last few moments. I've never been able to think about that.
When you had come the first time, you had said that he didn't know that Cathy had a daughter. And I want to know if that would have made any difference. If she would have told him, you know, I have a 5-year-old daughter waiting at home for me, would that have made any difference?
That's a wonderful question. These are things that I think he needs to tell you, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to hear them.
I don't really know what happened. It didn't bother me for years. It didn't bother me for years that I didn't know what they looked like. The state of Texas took care of them for me. I didn't ever want to think about them again. And it probably would have been okay to stay that way if I hadn't gotten involved in restorative justice and started teaching in prison. And I couldn't just let them be the boys that killed my daughter. All of a sudden I did want to think of them in human terms.
To help cope with her grief, Linda went back to school and now teaches psychology and philosophy in 2 Huntsville prison units.
Good evening. Look at the definition of aggression that Myers gives. Yeah, behavior intended to hurt.
Yes, sir.
I believe that everything that I do honors my daughter, Cathy. I believe that when I walk into prison and look in the faces of those men there that are human beings, I believe that honors her. And I certainly believe that this mediation will honor her.
Ellen has been corresponding with offender Brown for 3 months, but there is still work to be done.
How have you been? What I'm going to try and get him to do is own what he did. Own it in a way that he hasn't done before. The words that he has used, they're minimizing it. And what I want to do today is to get him to look at that. So you don't remember everything because you were so high?
As far as for things you can remember the most, and for me, was that extra part where she realized, you know, the gun was on her. She had no choice from that point on.
And what do you mean by she had no choice?
Whatever we said, that's where she was going to do.
And what did you do?
Let her down a road where there was leading out into pasture and country, to where, you know, be away from everything. Where we participated in sex.
And so what you really did was, what did you do to this woman? You need to use those words.
Raped her.
You raped her. Both of you raped her.
Yes, ma'am. I held the gun and my foul partner did his part in the
What did
sex,
you do?
raping her. And when it was done, then he held the gun and I went back and I participated in the rape and did it too.
Amy, on her own initiative, has written a letter back to Gary.
I really don't know what to expect when I meet you, but I look forward to meeting you. I don't know what to expect to get out of it. I'm very nervous, and I'm sure you are too.
The letter was pretty overwhelming for him. And overwhelming in a strange way, because he was so surprised that she didn't have a letter that was just full of anger and bitterness and hatred toward him.
I want you to know that even through the crime you committed against my mom caused me more pain than you will ever know. I feel sorry for you. As far as when all this is over, if they have choose not to forgive me, I'm not going to be mad. As far as what happened back then, it did happen and I can't change that. But I want them to know and believe through my actions that, no, I'm sorry.
Although only Linda and Amy will meet Cathy's killer, the process has stirred emotions in their whole family.
Yeah, because right at first, I wanted to kill these guys, you know? I mean, initially when it first happened.
At times it's been real difficult for me, watching them with the pain and then inability to deal with it.
You know, us three guys consider and think of a lot of things that's wrong with you doing anything for him. You know, we might have a problem with that. But there's a lot of things that are right with it.
Yeah.
What if you guys are the difference between him doing it again or not doing it again? So.
What my mother and Amy are doing for me is very, very difficult to do. Still, 15 years later, I'm not really willing to face the pain that I would have to face to go through this.
Do you all have anything that you want us to say? Or any questions you want us to ask?
I'd be curious to know about the car. It made a difference to me because I took responsibility for a car. At this point, I don't even want to know, almost, but I would like to know one way or the other. I'd like to know if it wasn't a problem with the car, then I could totally be relieved.
You know, maybe it's just a pact among men. I don't know what it is, but, you know, I do feel responsible, and I cannot accept that failure.
It's been 15 years, and I think we should be able to talk about it now. I mean, I think this can bring us together closer as a family. I really do.
Absolutely.
I've been tracking this process now for over a year, and my training has taught me to recognize from their written material and from our face-to-face meetings when both sides are ready, and they are ready.
The mediation will take place in 2 weeks. In 24 hours, offender Gary Brown will meet the family of the woman he murdered 15 years ago.
It's gonna be a long 24 hours. Ain't no sleep in the night, I already know.
Well, I had a dream last night. It's kind of a bad dream. I think it just had something to do with me being really nervous.
Trying to find pictures of Cathy when she was younger. I want to take some pictures of her with me to Wichita Falls. Cannot decide.
Well, that's sleeveless. I can't bring anything sleeveless. Can't wear sleeveless stuff in the prison.
Not real short.
Here we go.
This is called a crop cut. Very textured, very textured. What do you think?
Bye-bye. Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
We're 23A and B.
Linda and Amy began this journey over a year ago. Today, it will take them over 6 hours to travel from one end of Texas to the other. But it will be a trip not measured in miles.
This is quite a trek.
The mediation program suggests that the victims tour the offender's unit. Amy has never been in a prison before.
Thank you. I appreciate it, boss man. Gary.
Gary Brown.
That's the building he actually lives in. Parts of this unit here are very violent and aggressive type areas. All of our cells are basically just like this one.
No matter what you've done, I mean, that's a hard way to live. You know, you don't have any privacy. You don't have freedom. You don't have, you know, a lot of things. I think that's really sad.
Today is the day of the mediation. After all this work, it is finally going to happen. I'm not nervous, not nearly as nervous as I was before a few weeks ago.
I'm getting nervous. I can't eat much more.
The mediation will take place in the prison chapel.
Well, in a few minutes, we're going to go get Gary. All right. You have anything you'd like to talk about, or any issues you might have before we go get him?
No, I'm fine.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Let's go get Gary.
They called for me 14 bottom, brown. It's candy.
Really nervous? I want you to just sit down and for 30 seconds or maybe a minute, just gather your thoughts, okay? See you in a minute.
It is 10:30 a.m. 15 years of grief, guilt, and soul-searching have come down to this moment.
Oh my goodness, he's already up
Well, all these many months that we've been preparing has led us to where we are today. We have created a safe place for you, Linda, and you, Amy, to meet with you, Gary. And my role is in this meeting is the same as it's always been. I'm just here to support all of you.
I can tell it's going to be kind of a tough day. The main thing I want to get out of it, Gary, is I want you to know a lot about us and what the last 14 and a half years have been like for us. Not just the bad, the good things too. And I want to know the same things about you.
Well, you pretty much said everything that I wanted to say. I want you to know that I'm just as scared and nervous as you are. I don't want to say anything else right now.
One of the problems that we have, Gary, is that we never did have enough of what really happened to put things together.
I'm hoping that by going through this all over again, not on my behalf, but on y'all's behalf, that y'all don't wind up hating me even more and never even being able to consider anything about me being good and it changing what y'all dealt with all these years. And
I just feel like the sooner we can kind of get, maybe we just need to get past that. Can you do it? We'll let you know if you get to a point where we can't listen, okay?
She's always having trouble with the station wagon. And it's on, everything I'm telling you is true. I'm not making up, I'm not trying to make myself look good or my fat partner look good or anything. It's just the way it went. She saw us having trouble, and out of curiosity, she asked what was wrong.
Can I just interrupt you long enough to ask you, where were you when this was going on?
At the gas station.
Like, do you know why she was at the gas station?
She was getting gas. I remember that.
She was just getting gas?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
At that time, she said, well, I can take out Alvin if you want, bring you back up. And the God's got true, this part was volunteered. At that time, the gun was never pulled. There was nothing, she didn't even know we had it. It was when we got close to Alvin, that's where things wound up changing. I let her down, told her where to go down a road that I knew was leading to nothing out in pasture. And then when she asked why, Marvin pulled the gun. He had the gun on him and says, "Don't worry about it. Just do what we're telling you."
Do you know why it went in the direction it went? I mean, can you remember back what happened?
Thought was shooting in the leg would give us time to get away. And honestly, at first, there was no intent. It did change up, but there was no intent of killing. It was to slow her down so we'd be able to get in the car and get away and be long gone before she could tell anybody what had happened. In our minds, we felt we had no choice, about this. She's already seen our faces.
I mean, it wasn't like she pissed you off, or she was like, or y'all even had to force her to do it. She was just doing it just to be nice. And those were like pretty much the last thing she said was just why.
When she was out there and she heard me and him talking, and we had realized we'd already gone too far. She said, "You can take the car, you can take the money, you can take anything you want, and I won't say nothing." And then as Marvin pointed the gun towards the way, she said, "I forgive you and God will too." And then she put her head down. And if I don't remember anything else that night as clear as I did, it was that right there.
That was your mama. Down to the very last moment of her life.
Did you know that Cathy was pregnant?
No, ma'am. It did not show.
No, she's only 2 months pregnant. But she didn't tell you?
No, ma'am. I think she was too busy trying to keep up what was going on.
We thought she might have told you to keep you from killing her.
Honestly, I didn't know this until almost a little bit after the conviction. And me getting convicted back then. There was a lot of things I didn't even know. I didn't know about you.
I just wondered what she told you, like if she said anything about her being pregnant or she said anything about me, because I had just wondered if that would have saved her.
In my opinion, the reason why she didn't want to say too much is because maybe she would have been scared it could have raised a reaction or more hostility towards her.
You remember what she looked like?
I remember she had, I want to say blonde hair, kind of blondish brown, and blue jeans on. I don't remember the color of the shirt.
We brought pictures. This is Cathy when she was little, and I think she was 6 in that picture. This was Cathy's wedding. This is the last great picture of Cathy. That was, see, she really had brown hair, but she had been messing with it.
Well, I have a baby now, and I mean, Cathy not being there, it's been really, really hard. And but now that I have a baby, it's even harder at times, because she would have been his grandmother, and Chase will never get to meet her.
That's her son, Chase.
He's beautiful, isn't he?
Thank you, Gary. We'll see you in a little while.
Thank you for allowing me to have this chance. But trying to help y'all.
You are. You are helping. It's hard, and I think it takes a lot of guts to do it, so I appreciate that.
After 4 emotional hours, each side goes their separate ways for lunch. They will be back.
Did you anything to eat?
Jawbreaker.
After the details of the crime have been disclosed, there is a noticeable change in the
Do
room.
you think maybe you should spit that out? You want
Kind of love
Looks like somebody hit you. Well, this afternoon, we're going to talk about several different things. Linda wants to talk a little bit about their family. She wants you to know them, just like they want to know you more. And Amy's going to also talk about her childhood. So
I was afraid of everything as a little girl. I was so scared of everything. I get dropped off at the school bus, and any type of vehicle would come down our street. I thought they were after me. I thought they were out to get me, and I'd start running.
We took Amy to counseling for the first couple of years. And then again in 7th grade, she started having problems with depression. We had to take her back. And my sons, John and Steve, have had a lot of emotional problems over this, too.
There's times where I tried to strangle myself, or I've tried to overdose.
How about at 8? What did you try to do?
I swallowed a whole bunch of Tylenols thinking it would kill me. My stepfather, whenever I got in trouble, he forced me into 2 things. Either I could take the whooping, or either I had to do a sexual favor.
I can't imagine. What do you do with your time, Gary?
Really? Just in between, it really boils down to nothing but basically recreation and then watching movies in the evening whenever a movie comes on.
Do you ever read?
Yeah, I read
What do you
based
like
on
to
true
read?
stories.
Based on true stories.
I like based on true stories. Meaningful stories. I like the way they get me at the end, like Touched by an Angel does.
Yeah, you like that?
Love it.
We do too.
You ever thought about me making pro? How y'all gonna feel or think?
If you have a place to go and something to do positive with the rest of your life, you making parole is absolutely fine with me. And so I do hope that no matter how hard it is, that you will stay involved in education the minute they let you into it, as long as you can until you get out. And go as far as you can.
I want to finish it before I get out, as far as especially the GED. Please don't ever think about anything y'all ask me to do, to think it's going to frustrate or be inconvenience or hurt me. As long as y'all allow me to be able to show y'all in different ways, I will continue until y'all stop or y'all say I can't.
We will allow you.
Honestly, that will mean a whole lot to me.
We will allow that, I have to guarantee you.
Well, you know, it's almost 4:30, and we're going to have to be finishing. Do y'all have any thoughts, any final things that you would like to say to Gary?
Amy and I have been whispering, what we've been whispering about is we'd like Gary to have a picture of us. And you can get close, you don't have to stand back.
The ending surprised me for a couple reasons. Yeah, it felt really good thinking, here are the 2 people supposed to be hating me, but they were still willing, you know, to embrace in a picture. I felt like I was hit with a baseball bat, you know, knocked in left field, because, I mean, that really surprised me.
Say cheese, Gary.
Cheese.
For me, it was the most logical thing in the world. After this time together, what we gave each other, to have a hug at the end.
Thank you. God bless you.
We'll be watching you.
Trust me, I'll give you something to see in the bright light.
That's good.
I'm pretty glad that I hugged him and taken the pictures and stuff, but it was really, really hard for me to do that. Well, thank you for doing this.
I hope it really does you good.
But as hard as it was, I know that that's what I was supposed to do at that time. And then here's a picture of all 3 of us, with Gary standing in the middle. It's been a month, and I feel like a whole different person. He looks pretty scared. Not only do I feel closer to Cathy, which is, you know, the most amazing feeling you could ever feel. Here's my mom and I. But not only that, I feel closer to myself because we both look like we've been crying. All of our makeup is gone. I know my strength, and I know that there's not one fear that I can't face, that there's not one obstacle I can't overcome. He has a face I'll never forget. It was so hard, the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but it definitely was just amazing.
So this one's going to be real hard for my family to see. And of course, the other big piece is the fact that she said, I forgive you, and God will forgive you too. If she could say that in the last moments of her life, then she was not in the same kind of terror that I have always imagined she was. So it gives me peace to know that she had some peace even in those last few moments. It gives me another kind of affirmation that doing this mediation was 100% the right thing for Amy and I to do.
I could have never predicted that this photo of the three of them arm in arm would have ever happened. I could have not predicted that. I really don't think there's been a day that I haven't thought about it. I mean, the impact of what happened in that room, the emotion that was created among those three people, Linda and Amy and Gary, and I can tell you, it spilled over onto me. Gary looks like a little boy. I really loved it, and I thought it was enormously successful for everyone, for me. I think he could have been a wonderful son to someone.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the most important days of my life. I've never even had anything turn out that special. I've never had anything that had that much fulfillment. I know I shouldn't have smiled. I went crazy there. I do feel better about myself because I did accomplish something good. Like I said, I'm not fixing to do anything that's going to make my conscience bother me anymore. And if it's my conscience going to bother me, it means I'm not doing something right. I'm not going to make that mistake no more. And I do feel changes within me. I didn't do all this for nothing, and I can't stop now.
Thank you for witnessing that with us. We know that Meeting with the Killer, One Family's Journey, is not an easy film to watch. It asks a lot of us as viewers, as humans, and it stirs up a lot too. Before we move into the Q&A, we'd like to offer a moment to simply pause and breathe and reconnect with ourselves. I'm going to be bringing on Amy and Linda as our panelists, and I will return in a moment. If you're comfortable, I invite you to gently close your eyes or soften your gaze. Take a deep breath in and let it go. Again, breathe in, letting your lungs fill fully, and exhale slowly one more time. Deep breath in and out. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice your body. Notice what is present for you. And whenever you're ready, gently bring your attention back to the feet. Thank you for taking that moment with us. Now we're honored to move into our Q&A conversation with two incredible participants during a lived experience dialogue. Linda, do you think you could mute your sound for a second?
Use my what?
Your sound, we can hear the background really loud. Maybe Chris talk. Can you shut your door, your bedroom door?
Guys? Yeah. She says she can hear the background noises. Okay. Could I get you all to go? We'll be quiet. Just, okay. Turn the sound down to nothing and don't talk. Tell me if this is better.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
Right. Thank you to the attendees who are currently here and whoever ends up watching this in the future. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Linda L. White. She was an adjunct faculty member at Sam Houston State University in the Department of Psychology and Philosophy, where she taught upper-level courses, including in criminal justice. She considered herself primarily a death educator, but became increasingly engaged in criminal justice reform and restorative justice, particularly in cases involving juvenile offenders. Linda earned her PhD at Texas A&M University, where she wrote her dissertation on victim offender mediation dialogue in crimes of extreme violence. She has published extensively on victims' rights, restorative justice, and the death penalty, contributing to books like Wounds That Do Not Bind, Victim-Based Perspectives on the Death Penalty. She was a volunteer mediator in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice's Victim Offender Mediation Dialogue Program and was appointed by former Governor Rick Perry to represent victims' issues on the Texas State Council for Adult Offender Supervision. And I'd like to introduce Amy White. Amy remembers being told that her mother, Cathy, was murdered when she was 5. She speaks to the pain and despair that she felt then and in the years since. She recognizes that, quote, those on death row and those who are executed have families too. Those family members, those children experience the same kind of pain and devastation that I felt. To me, the most premeditated murder of all is the death penalty. It only creates more victims, more heartache, more pain, close quote. Amy has spoken publicly on issues such as restorative justice, victim offender mediation dialogue, victim services, and death penalty abolition. She formerly served as president of the Texas chapter of Murder Victims Families for Reconciliation. Thank you both so much for being here. I'm going to start with some questions for both of you, and if people have any comments or questions on the way, please put them in the chat and we'll periodically check them. So, Linda, can you tell us how you originally heard about victim offender dialogue?
Amy, you want to go ahead?
Yes, you.
I was coughing, and so I didn't know who you called on, if you called on.
Linda, I asked you, you've told a story often about how did you even hear about victim offender dialogue being an option because they don't publicize it in the state of Texas.
Yeah. I actually was teaching a class in one of the prison units, and I don't remember what the class was at the time, but one of my students told me about restorative justice. He at least, I already knew about restorative justice in larger terms, but he told me that we were actually doing some in Texas with the dialogues, the victim offender dialogues. So I actually told someone about it, and I attended a conference that summer following that discussion, and it was all on restorative justice. And one of the people that was part of that put me in touch with the woman who ended up being our mediator, Ellen Harbert. And she asked me to join a presentation with her and a couple of other people. One of them was the DA of Travis County, and which is where Austin is. And she also had on that panel David Durfler, who has since passed away. And I'm not sure Ronnie Earl may have passed away as well, but this was a long time ago. And she introduced me to David, and David and I talked about the fact that I wanted to study the victim offender mediated dialogue, and I in crimes of extreme violence. And so David said, "Well, I'll see that that happens. You need to talk to the primary person, our primary investigator, who is up at University of Minnesota." And so I talked to him, and he was fine with it. So they sent me the package to become a mediator. And David thought all along that you had to immerse yourself in it if you were going to actually do anything with it, and certainly write about it. And so that's how I heard about it initially.
Linda, when you heard about it, was there any prediction that you yourself would engage in this, or were you interested just on learning about it? Okay.
I was just interested as an educational pursuit.
Wow.
Although, because I was very much in favor of restorative justice and would go anywhere to talk about it, I certainly thought it was a great idea. But I had never read about it in terms of crimes of extreme violence, because that's not what it had been used for in around the United States, at least in terms of state-based agencies. And at the time that I asked about it and got involved with it, there was only Ohio and Texas that did that, which I thought was really important, because there were so many things I felt like about Texas justice that weren't to my liking. So I really did like that. And I wasn't interested. However, by the time I got myself immersed in the realm of that justice in Texas, that particular kind, and interviewed the people for my dissertation, by that time I was very much in favor of it. I couldn't get that in process fast enough. So the person who chose those people and set that up with David, I practically grabbed her and said, "I want to do it. I want to do it." And she was really surprised, because the first time she asked me, I had said no, I wasn't interested as a personal process.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for that. So then, Amy, what was your initial response to, or how did you decide to get engaged with victim offender dialogue when you were approached by Linda?
Well, I knew about, restorative justice and the victim offender mediation dialogue program through my mom. And I definitely was a proponent. And I transcribed her dissertation. And so I really got involved, and I got to learn about the people that she had, interviewed, who had done the victim offender mediation dialogue program. And so I remember I was on bed rest with my son. I was pregnant. I was like 7 or 8 months pregnant, and I was on bed rest. I had placenta previa, and he tried to come at 6 months when I was 6 months pregnant. And so I was on strict bed rest, but she came to me and she asked me if I'd be interested. And I was without a beat, I was just like, yes, absolutely. I was always like, especially when I was a teenager, when I turned, like, I was always just interested in who they were, who would do this to my mom. And then when I learned that there was a way that I could actually get to know one of them in a way where it was safe, um, and it could benefit me even more, or at all, not even more, because then yeah, I was definitely, I just found myself wondering a lot, especially when I turned their age at 15. I was like, I don't know why that was, but anyway, so when she asked me, I was like, absolutely, I want to do it. And then shortly after, she said, well, somebody's interested in doing the documentary part. And I was like, I don't know about that. So that took a little while longer to, agree upon. But yeah, but deciding to meet with him was a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, that is remarkable that not only were you considering engaging in this deeply emotional process, but then to do it on film and to have it for the entire world. How do you feel about that now?
I remember saying like thinking about it, and then I remember going to her maybe the next day. And at first they came to us with the idea of it being more like from my perspective. So they were gonna even pitch it to like MTV or something like that. And I was like, because they do have like some serious shows late at night where it's like they teach you how to, there's some like life courses on MTV late at night. Who knew? But I was just, and then they were just, and then once I found out it would be more from both of our perspectives and not just mine, I was definitely more comfortable with that idea. Um, but I remember thinking like, I don't know, because this is the most personal thing that a person could ever do, and it's going to be hard as it is, and then to have everything documented and recorded and all of that, I was like, that's another thing. And then I slept on it a night or two, prayed about it, um, and I decided, if it helps one person, with their healing process, then I'm for that. So I decided, I thought that was a good idea, as long as, and once we had decided that we would do that, we had like our first meeting with the producer and the camera crew, and I made it clear that like this is our process, and you're there to document it. This is not for y'all. We're not gonna change anything or just to appease y'all. So basically, you're gonna get what you're gonna get. Hopefully, you're gonna get some good stuff, but if not, that's not our issue, you know. And they were very, very respectable, and they they we were the producer Lisa Jackson. She let us know like every time she edited something afterwards, she would send us she would ask us lots of questions. So she was very much a part of like making sure that we were a part of it, and that we agreed to certain things, and so I really appreciated that.
Hmm. Can you tell me about, there's so many hours of preparation. They were saying it's up to 2 years. Linda, can you tell me what were the concrete things that were done to prepare you for this?
We had to fill out long, long inventories about being a victim. And there were 10 pages of typed notes, questions, typed questions. And Amy and I did ours together. And it was, when she was on bed rest anyway, and I had a captive audience. So we talked the questions through, and it was really neat. Uh, boy, what a lame word for what it was. It was meaningful for us. We shared a lot of things. I think that part brought us closer together. I really do. And we cherished the time that we had together answering all those questions, because we each had different reactions to so many things. But a big part of mine was that I had been more enmeshed in it. And so I had to bring her along to some of the things. And a lot of it was your emotions, your own feelings, and those are just yours. and nothing right or wrong about those. They just are. And that was really special that we had that to do that together, and having it having all that prep time. We prepared about a year, and the reason that we prepared about a year is David insisted on it. He thought that was minimum time, and the time was right to film it and have it be something really nicely produced and so forth. They always filmed these mediations. It's just that they kept them in house and they could go back and debrief with them and so forth. But by having it be done with producers from New York and camera folk from New York, that was special. And we actually came to really like those people and have them be, our special folk. They became really friends by the time the process was over. But they would come every few months with Ellen, and we would talk through some of the questions. We would spend time with her because her job was to prepare us and to prepare Gary, as you could see on the film. And so we would sit and talk about the different ways that we felt about things. And anyway, it was a good time, I felt like, preparing for it. And I just want to throw one thing in. The fact that we had it filmed, which was and produced the way we did, has helped it go around the world in so many ways. And I'm so glad that we were able to do that. That was very uncommon in the program. We had to go through all kinds of legal, hurdles to do that. But it enabled things like today. It enabled it to be shown in prison. They use it in a number of places inside prisons to sensitize men and women in prison to what it means to be a victim. And it has been my joy, actually, to take to go many places where they've shown the film and then answer questions. And I have met a lot of very, very remorseful guys that way. I haven't been in any women's prisons because there's none in the area where I go, but I know that it's shown there too.
That's remarkable. Honestly, this video is available on YouTube, so anyone can access it at any time. If you do a search for victim offender dialogue, though, on YouTube, you will find next to nothing. So that you are right that it was uncommon and it still is uncommon to have a document like this. And as you were a captive audience member, Amy, on bed rest, which I also think is remarkable. I mean, you were producing life as you were engaging in this process. I'm wondering whether was the process and going through these questions, did it deepen your faith in wanting to engage, or was there ever a point where you thought, oh, I don't want to do this anymore?
So I just want to add what is called is a grief inventory. And you fill it out, you fill out the really tough questions. It's like, I don't know how many questions, but it's a lot. And you fill them out as a victim, but then you go back and you fill them out again as an offender. So you can either put yourself like you are your offender, like if we were Gary, or a time that we had offended somebody. Like, of course, it wasn't murder, but we've all been an offender of some type of way in our lives. So, I just thought of like when I had hurt a really good friend of mine by doing something really stupid. I just was thinking about that. And so so you answered the questions again as an offender.
I had forgotten that,
I was
Amy.
not aware of
Thank you for
that.
remembering.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And so I remember when I first started trying to fill them out as the victim, at least. I don't remember if I did the victim part or the offender part first, but I remember looking at it and I was like, whoa, overwhelmed. I tried to start filling it out and I was just like, I would write a few sentences or a few words and I would be like, "Urgh," and then like it was very, very overwhelming for me at first. And that's when I talked to my mom and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I want to do the process. I want to do the actual thing, but this is a lot. I have to dig way too deep. And I was just emotional wreck. And she goes, well, let's see if we can do it together. And that was the best idea that, I mean, not that she's ever had. She's had lots of good ideas. But like that was such a good idea because she was correct in the way that like it was very meaningful to us and it connected us in a way that most people could never be connected, like, and
Yeah.
it was an amazing time in my life. Even though I couldn't get up and do anything and I was a captive audience, I mean, maybe sometimes maybe that's what it takes. Amy, sit the hell down and pay attention. Just listen, and then and converse. One on one with your mother. Um, I've been, I've lost Cathy, but I've been blessed to have two wonderful moms in my life, and so yeah.
So I imagine that Gary had to do something similar, that
Yes,
there
he has to do
was
the
a
same thing.
perspective taking, putting yourselves in the shoes. I wasn't aware of, so thank you for sharing that. Um, I do see a question, and I'm going to address one part of it from Robin O'Brien, which is I'm going to focus on the other family members. I'm wondering what was their participation or dialogue with you as you were doing the grief inventory and the other moments, because I could see y'all hanging out in the kitchen and having a really good relationship and the men in the family choosing not to participate, but what was their role? And once you came back after the dialogue and you were able to share the details, like her car was actually fine. She was just getting gas. Were they able to gain a sense of peace afterwards as well?
Good question. Hello, Robin. Thanks for the question. Um, I feel like it did give Steve a lot of peace because he felt, it was he felt because her car had been overheating and he told her he was going to fix it. And so he always thought that maybe she was at the gas station getting water for her radiator. But that wasn't the case. She was there just getting gas. So that brought him a lot of peace, I feel like. Um, but Johnny and Steve both, they weren't really involved, but Steve was a little more involved. Obviously he was the only one on camera, and I loved that he shared. He was so open and vulnerable in the documentary,
Yes.
and unfortunately, both of them have passed since. And but I don't really. I kind of feel like they were. Maybe my mom might be better at answering this because I kind of feel like they. I don't know if all of them even watched it all. Or if they did, it took them a long time. I know that. So, and I don't really remember having a conversation with anybody about it except for Steve and his ex-wife, Peggy.
I see.
Johnny had Johnny had a lot of people tell him that they had seen that and well, I don't guess it's a lot, but but he had some people tell him that they had seen it, like go on probation or in jail or prison or whatever, and how powerful and wonderful it was. So he eventually watched it, and but I don't think John, my husband, ever saw it. I don't think he ever saw it. It was too painful for him, and he just wouldn't do it. And it's just true that a lot of people are that way. They tend to be more male than female, but
But
sorry, guys.
they were both very supportive in us doing it.
I
feel like.
Yeah.
What's that, Amy?
I felt like they were supportive though in us doing so. Like you know, I mean, I don't know how it was with you and Dad when it was just the two of you.
Absolutely.
But yeah, but no matter
Absolutely.
what your feelings
They
were,
couldn't have been,
they were.
yeah, couldn't have been more supportive of us
Yeah.
going up there to do the mediation, all the prep work, all of that. Incredibly supportive. They just, my husband he just couldn't watch it, just couldn't watch it. I was always sad that he didn't, but he got out of it what he needed to. And that's from listening to us talk about it, how powerful it was, him being supportive. He felt good about that. Uh, and, you know, who he was and, and how he worked. That's just how he was. He considered himself a supporter, uh, you know, a strong male supporter. So,
Not necessarily a participator.
yeah.
There does seem like a sense of not so much judgment or not so much discouragement that you can't or you should not do this or how dare you. Maybe saying, you know, this
None
is
of that.
me. And I think that I'm guessing that doesn't happen in all families. I'm sure that there can be pressure to grieve or to deal or heal with the trauma in a particular way, you know, based on your own understanding.
Yeah.
Robin had another question, which I was going to broach as well. Robin wrote, both of you have such amazing strength and have given everyone a beautiful gift, sharing your heartache. So thank you. Has there been any further contact from Gary since the show?
I have. I have. I've seen Gary twice. There was a man. He paroled on time, and I'm trying to remember now. I think it was 2010, 2009 or 10. He paroled, and I've seen him. I've had dinner with him actually, and other people at the same restaurant. He is he's on parole. He is subject to quite a few different, you know, instructions that he has to follow. He can't leave the small town where he lives. So I had to drive down to see him. There was a man uh, uh, who writes for a magazine. Um, I'm trying to remember the name of it, and I can't. Maybe I will eventually. I think I read where it's an online magazine, so I hope I can remember it. Anyway, he wrote an article that included a lot of material about us. And so he and I drove down to the little town where Gary lives. And he and I'm trying to remember if it was anybody else. I don't think so. Anyone else went to dinner at this little place that serves catfish. And fried catfish is, for me, one of the two major food groups. So,
What's the other one, Linda?
so we had dinner, and he still has a hard time. He did everything to hold himself accountable, everything in the world, and he still feels dreadful, dreadful. And every time if you ask him to talk about it at all, he starts crying. So we just get away from it. But we had a really nice time together. We ate, we laughed. Um, he showed me where he lived. We picked him up, but he wanted us to come in and see where he lived. And I wanted to see how he was, and and it was kind of the beginning of an exploration of appearing someplace together. But I decided that it just wasn't doable. And he was trying to move forward, but he didn't mind talking to me. And then another time, a man from California who volunteers in San Quentin. And I had been there with him. He came through town on his way to a conference and stayed overnight with John and me. And he wanted to see Gary and talk to Gary. And so he and I, and Gary and his girlfriend, his fiance at the time, the four of us went back to that same catfish restaurant. And it was a little bit more jovial than it had been the last time. He was trying to get a captain's license to, not captain, something else. Anyway, he wanted to work on a boat, and he was doing some kind of training for a license for something. And so we had a good time, and he has changed. You know, he was a 15-year-old. What can you say about a 15-year-old kid? Most of the time, they're not thinking with all their brain. And we know now from all the research that we don't fully develop our entire brain till we're somewhere around 25. So, you know, you can be really immature and really stupid at the age of 15. And if that's where you are, and you're also high on some kind of substance, you know, and so anyway, I knew that Gary's not the one, though he holds him fully accountable for it. He's not the one that actually pulled the trigger. And I just wanted to accommodate both gentlemen that wanted to see Gary. And it was not hard for me to see him, because Gary will never forgive himself. And you know, even though he has my forgiveness for simply the fact that I don't choose to carry that around. It's a burden to not be forgiving people. It's just a burden. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. It's not always about the other person. So I think that, anyway, the gentleman that I took the second trip, that was a little easier on everybody. As we're driving off, I said, you know, it's hard for me to reconcile that young man with the young man who killed my daughter. It's just hard for me to feel that, And he said, you know, Linda, I don't think that young man killed your daughter. And I said, that's what it is. The young man that Gary is today would not have even gone close to a decision and an action like that. He just wouldn't have. So I have, and in my long answer to the fact that I have seen him twice.
So I haven't seen him, but I do want to share something. I feel like I feel like I did my job. Everything went well. I don't have a desire to continue, to have any type of friendship or relationship with him. I do want to make sure that he was holding up, his end of the bargain, and make sure that he got his GED and that he was doing well. And my mom reports to me when, she knows. And I'm glad to know that he's doing well, because that was part of the whole thing. But I did, I want to just read real quick. There was this pastor who reached out to me. This was in 2011, so this was a long time ago. But he said, greetings in Jesus' name. I have prayed and counseled my heart before emailing you. Everything on the outside tells me not to email you, but my heart tells me yes. I know about your mom, about your life, and how you lost your mom at 5 years old. It has to be a scar. a scar, and forgive me to mess with the past, but in some way I have been put into the path. Gary Brown, who you met in jail, was paroled and has been in my church for 1 year. He has told us the full story, and we have seen the documentary. I have counseled him many times, and he lives with deep sorrow and a sense of paying it forward. He has cried about what he has done several times before me. He has gotten a job as a handyman here in Beaumont, Texas, at an auto shop. A deacon at my church gave him a job. He comes to church every time the doors open. He helps the homeless, and he has given 4 homeless folk in the course of a year a place to live free at his place for a month or 2, rent free, and paid for their food. I've heard him say several times that he could not fail Linda and Amy for their grace and forgiveness. He passes all his drug tests monthly and does Bible studies at his house. He keeps a picture of you and Linda in his Bible that y'all took while he was in prison. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I mean, I'm not sure if this will do more harm than good. I'm just going with my heart. And he gives me information about his church. And I said, I pray his story of recovery helps. I'm praying for you. And I just feel like that proves that, the process worked for both sides. And I'm just knowing that he does do things, and he does the right things when he can, and he does it for my mom's and I mean, that's amazing.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Amy. I didn't know about that letter, and I actually didn't know that you all knew that much about where he's at, and I can respect that you have different desires of either wanting to be in his life or not, but knowing that he's changed and continues to meet the agreements that he made with you. Linda talked about forgiveness a little bit. I was just wondering about how do you how do you message with people who might struggle with the idea that doing a victim offender mediation dialogue um, requires forgiveness and forgiveness that they may not be ready to offer, and so then maybe this process isn't for them. What would you tell them from your experience? Now I'll start with Amy.
I don't feel like I don't feel like I don't feel like forgiveness is a requirement. I feel like it usually ends up happening, and people usually express their forgiveness at the end because it just it happens once your offender takes accountability and responsibility 100% for what they've done, and you learn about them, their story, which in our case, he had a horrible story. And then you're able to tell him how his action affected our lives, and how it, had a ripple effect on our other people's lives. There's just a lot of healing in that. But mainly, I the word forgiveness, sometimes I cringe when I hear it, just because I know there's a lot of kind of toxic forgiveness too, because people forgive, people women in abusive relationships forgive too much. People may have someone in their family that they forgive on a regular basis just to keep the peace within their family. Sometimes but true forgiveness, at least in this aspect, it's allowing yourself to not be burdened by anger and hate anymore, and whatever is holding you down and holding you back, you feel like this release of anger, and you don't have any of that, and so I don't feel like it's a requirement, but I think most of the time it usually happens. I don't think I ever said out loud I forgive you to him. But it's not about because it's not about him. It's about my mom said it best. Forgiveness is a gift that you give yourself. That's just beautifully put. And she told me I could steal that, but she said it anyways. But I'll forgive her.
It was not a requirement. It was not a requirement in our program. And, you know, if they bring it up, if the victim, especially from if the victim brings it up, you can talk about it and tell them how you feel. But David's description was what Amy said, not allowing that power that anger holds over you, not giving it that power. But you never have to tell a victim. You never tell a victim that they have to forgive. No, no, no.
Are there aspects of, if you're a victim in Texas, you have access to victim offender dialogue in the case of a crime like this? I don't know all of the details. I know that people are offered this after the crime happens, but I also know that the state is not allowed to publicize this program to victims because we're not in a place of trying to pressure victims along their own path of healing. How do you think, Linda, you can strike a balance? Because we really want people to know that they have access to this if it's something they're interested in. How do we strike a balance between publicizing this and not making it seem like this is
You
something
know,
to do?
I'm not I'm not in contact with anybody doing that anymore. And I'm not able, because of my feeble body, to do a lot of things these days. And so I'm not aware of how big the department is. But at one time, they had so many people on there that there was a long, long waiting list. And I would imagine that if they publicized it a lot, there would still be a long, long waiting list. So I don't know. I can't really answer that question with any uh, with any knowledge. Now I know that this is used a lot all over the country in other crimes. You know, crimes like theft, vandalism. You know, those kinds of things. And uh, and you and it can be offered to people, but I I it's very rare, I think, that they do this. And I it, you know, it needs to be done in a very precise way, or you re-victimize the victim. And that's one thing you absolutely don't. I mean, that's not what you want to do. So uh, it's only appropriate in certain situations. And unlike the victim, the offender does need to hold himself accountable. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, they never did it when the offender was, you know, in the midst of an appeal, anything like that. Because so, that's a good question, and I don't know the answer.
I don't know the exact answer either, but I do know that it's funny that you say, what did you say? Like, you don't want to broadcast, or they're not allowed to like broadcast it to the victims because of why? I forgot what you said.
This is my understanding. It could be false, but that, you know, the state is not putting pressure on you to meet with the person who harmed you.
Right.
Kind of messaging.
But yeah, I think it's kind of funny or ironic because when it comes to, but when it's time, but when they're angry, when the victim, when it first happens and they're ready to prosecute an offender, they definitely tell, you know, they definitely reach out to the victims then, and they're only allowed to feel one way, and that's anger, and they want to prosecute this person and punish them to the maximum, you know, that the law allows. And if you don't feel that way, then you're treated like crap from everybody, because all of a sudden your vision and what you want is not aligned with theirs. So then, and there's many cases that's happened. I I definitely, and this is kind of, I haven't been doing, I haven't done this in a while, but I used to go around the country and I would show my documentary and I would do a Q&A afterwards, just kind of like this, or I would just go and speak to churches or schools or juvenile detention centers and prisons, just to raise public awareness on restorative justice and victim offender mediation dialogue, because the information is not readily available. But that, to me, it's planned that way. They don't want people to know about it. I When I was going around and raising public awareness, I would try to meet with the mayor of Houston, or maybe somebody that was, more in charge and could kind of publicize our organization, um, because they have victims' rights services that are like ran by like Andy Kahn and people like that, which is fine. I'm glad that they, that there's not just one way to support victims, and there's not one way that a victim should feel. So I just feel like they should have information to everything and not just one way, and that's and that question makes me want to go out and start doing this again, because it's like there does need to be more of a balance. And of course, it's always up to the victim how they want to, how they want to heal, how they want to do things. But like, this is where the healing happens. I've been through it before, and I know that, living in that anger and that hate and revenge, and yes, you're going to feel that for a while, of course, but this doesn't mean it's healthy, in the long run. And I really do want to start maybe doing something again, and um, try to show victims that there's a different side and there's, other options.
Yeah, we have a current volunteer victim offender mediator who is going to be on one of our webinars talking about how she's done victim offender dialogue. Cheryl Miller is her name, for capital murder cases. I believe there's less than 20 volunteers for the entire state of Texas.
Wow.
I want to say there's less than 10, but and they don't get paid. It's volunteer. It's a very intensive process. You went through it. So you both are certified mediators, right?
Mhm. Right.
That was just surprising to me as a layperson, who didn't even know that Texas was at the forefront of doing this work. I just want to pause and invite the people who are on the webinar. If you'd like to put in any of your questions, feel free to do so at any point. And Linda, I'm wondering, how do you think restorative justice should, well, how would you change the way the criminal justice served you? Is there a way that restorative justice can be the system of dealing with harm? What would have been more, I guess, what did restorative justice offer that criminal justice system did not offer?
In the beginning, you're probably not necessarily ready for it, but that isn't when a lot of things happen in the regular criminal justice system either. I I think that it might be good to run along beside it. One of the foremost authorities and proponents of restorative justice in all its forms was Reverend Virginia Mackey, and she passed away a number of years ago. But one of the things that she said is, I'm not ready to give up due process yet.
Okay.
So she said, I think it can only be side by side,
Okay.
and that certainly is in crimes of extreme violence, such as murder and sexual assault. It's going to need to be afterward, after the regular due process takes place. And I agree with her that it's, and of course there's going to be plenty of work for the lawyers in either one. So even if you only have side by side, there are places where in the rest of the world, not in the United States, but there are places in the world, and I'm thinking specifically of New Zealand at the moment, where they have, I'm not 100% if how much of their system, but I know it's that their juvenile justice system is almost totally restorative. I think it's all circle formatted, mostly, but uh, but I'm pretty sure it's restorative justice all the way through.
Amy, what would you advocate for if there's a policy change you could advocate for, or a change in the traditional criminal legal system that you think would better serve victims' needs?
Um, that's a good question. Um, I feel like just approaching victims like from the beginning, um, and not pressuring them into doing anything, just just letting them know, hey, I'm here for you. I've been through what you've been through. I'm here for you. Um, a lot of in the beginning, a lot of stuff is just such a whirlwind, like you're caught up in the court system, and sometimes that can take years and years. And it's a very grueling, talk about re-victimization. Um, so I would just let, if I could, if the right from the beginning, like there's groups like parents of murdered children, or yeah, parents of murdered children, and organizations like that immediately reach out to the victims and kind of get them on their side. I just would like to let them know that there's not just one route that you can go. And I definitely think that there should be a way to where you can get the information a lot easier, and people should know about this process. I mean, we did this so long ago, and I was just certain that, it would be more public by now, but unfortunately it's not.
So, for people who are new to the whole idea of restorative justice, where do you recommend they go? Since you got introduced a long time ago, what would be a way for them to learn more about victim offender dialogue, either if they want to become a mediator or experience it themselves?
Mom, do you have an answer for that? Because I haven't been proactive in this work in a long time. I just kind of got restarted. I don't really know that, maybe
Yeah,
just to go to your website.
I still would start with Howard Zer's basic book,
Oh yeah,
the
changing
very
lenses,
first one. Uh,
changing lenses, or
change,
something.
say it, yeah,
Changing lenses.
changing lenses. I definitely would do that because it's the basics. It's simple. You can get hold of it. The ideas when you read it. It should be a widely available book. And I think that even though there's all those little books, I I personally prefer Howard Howard Zer's uh, Changing Lenses to his little book. I just think if you're not acquainted with it at all, that starts you out on a really good and it's very readable, very accessible to anyone.
Mhm. Um, I also wanted to talk a little bit about, Chase is there. Whenever I've shown this film to my students, they love the part where your baby, now grown child, is blinking his eyes and everyone's blinking back. And if you could speak to in the generational impact of this crime. Because I think that that's something that people have to grapple with. It's not just something that hits the first generation, but it keeps going. So, what has been the generational impact or the generational journey of healing? Either one.
Um, that's a tough one because both of my kids are not like me at all. And well, my daughter is almost a spitting image of me, but when it comes to like processing hard things or emotions and um things like that, they they're I'm not saying they're not capable, but they're just they don't want to. So they're very so when it comes to them, unfortunately, I haven't been able to really be as open as I would like to be at times because first of all, my son hates to see me cry. I mean, it really, really just, oh, he can't stand it. So if I start to cry, which is very, especially the older I get, I could just be talking about, I could watch a show on YouTube or something and I'm just like, a commercial could make me cry. So, but he just hates it. He just hates to see his mom cry. But I do know, and I'm going to let my mom speak on this, that one time he went with her to an event and that really, really opened his eyes and he seemed to really appreciate that. But I do want to report that he has two sons of his own now.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm a grandma, but I'm not grandma.
Amy.
I'm
Wow.
Gigi. Yeah. So he has two sons, Damien and Darian, and he's 24 and he's huge and just he's the best.
Who's 24?
Chase.
No,
So tell him about the time that he went with you.
is say again. Say again.
Tell him about the time where Chase went with you.
Oh, I took him first of all to eat Chinese food at my favorite Chinese restaurant in Huntsville, Texas. And then we went to the trustee unit on one of the trustee part of one of the units there. And he went in with me, and I had found out if it was okay to bring him and so forth. And I brought him, and he came in and he sat down, and I introduced all the guys to him. And then we showed the video. So he's seen the video. And and he one of the guys wanted to ask him a question, and he asked him a question, and so they interacted with Chase, and it just blew him away. It just blew him away. We talked about it all the way home, and when he left, he sent me a text. I gonna have to hunt for what I've done with it, but he said that the most impactful thing that had happened to him was how much he felt, how strongly he felt about it, and that he loved that I did that, and that it meant so much to me that he felt like what a wonderful grandmother he had, which of course just made me feel great, but that he wanted he wanted to be there, and he wanted to answer their questions, and it was just the most amazing time. I It was one of my favorite times with Chase that I had forgotten about that. Amy, thank you for reminding me. Uh, it's it was great, and he said that he was so proud of his grandmother, and how what a beautiful grandmother he had, that kind of thing. It was it was a super wonderful time.
Well, I love that story too. I've heard it too because it just
Yeah.
goes to show the seeds that you've planted and how they're going to continue to grow, even though it may not be in the same exact way. Maybe he's going to practice that way of being or sharing that story in other spaces. But I'm wondering, to close today, if you could offer some final words for people. What is a message you would like them to take away from the film and your experience?
You want to go first, Amy, or you were
No,
last?
I want you to go first.
Uh, I think that the most important message is that uh, life can be, what you make it, what you make it. And if you think this is something that's for you, whether you call it restorative or transformative, either one, it truly can transform your life. And so I think it's worth talking about. It's worth going anywhere for me to talk about it. Uh, and uh, and it's a special, special thing that I wish I'd known about years before I did. And it helped me meet the most wonderful people across the country. I have been to so many places, and and because of the film, and and I went uh, to 2 or 3 places, actually 4 places in Vermont one year. Went to a lot of places in New York, and it's just been incredible to meet all the beautiful people that do restorative justice. Okay.
Wonderful.
For me, obviously there's, it was very personal. But I just want every victim to know that wherever they are in their journey right now, it's okay. Don't let anybody tell you that you need to do something or need to feel something or be further along, you're getting over it, getting closure. I hate that word closure because there is never any closure. You're always going to miss that person. Nothing is ever going to bring them back. But um, there is healing that's available and it's possible and it's transformative and it really can save lives, to be honest. And also, but the restorative justice part, um, like our recidivism rate in the United States is, I don't, the last time I looked, which was a few years ago, was close to 90%. It was like 86% or something like that, which is when like people get out of prison and they recommit a crime and they end up back in prison. Um, when the men and women who go through restorative justice programs, like anything under the umbrella of restorative justice, like the victim offender mediation dialogue process, their recidivism rate is 30 something percent. So they get out and they don't recommit crimes because they have met the victim. They have a personal, like there's so much um, humanity that this creates. And I feel like when you connect with people, no matter what it is, but it really, it makes a huge difference. And I think if you just look at the numbers, then you just realize, hey, this works. And maybe we should look at this and um, maybe we should adopt some of these principles and implement them into our society and our justice system and see what happens. And I guarantee you the results will be really great.
Well, thank you both so much. We're so lucky to have Linda and Amy in Houston,
Thank you.
in Tomball, so close by. And we're so grateful that you came together to help support other victims during National Crime Victims Week. And also grateful to our attendees for joining us live and hopeful that this message will get out and we can start to let people know the transformative work that's actually happening in Texas, despite all the punitive things we know that simultaneously occur here. So I just want to thank you so much. I want to invite everyone to go to our website, restorativehouston.org, click on the events tab, and you can find out more resources and more events that we are sponsoring this week, and everything is free. So thank you so much, Amy and Linda, and I hope you have a wonderful week.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you. Thank you, Anita.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.